Amanda and James Colley lived in a charming neighborhood on South Bellagio Drive, a cul-de-sac in St Augustine, Florida. The couple had a son and daughter, and to the outside world, they appeared to be the perfect family living the American dream. Those who knew Amanda described her as confident in the life of the party. She was always surrounded by friends and had a vibrant personality. James, too, was personable and easy to befriend. He was involved in coaching his children's sports teams, and everyone thought he was a great dad. However, as time passed, cracks started to appear in their marriage. James had always had a jealous side, and Amanda's outgoing nature and the way she lit up every room she walked into made him insecure. Her ability to make friends and attract attention further fueled his insecurities. Matters worsened when James began to drink heavily. His jealous tendencies became even more difficult to control when he was under the influence of alcohol. It became a common occurrence for James to verbally abuse Amanda, blaming her for the problems in their marriage. Amanda believed it was important for their children to have their mother and father in their lives, so she and James strived to make their strained relationship work. Despite Amanda's best efforts, James's jealous behavior did not subside. It continued to manifest in various ways, including constantly monitoring Amanda's movements, controlling her social interactions, and questioning her fidelity. She attempted to navigate these challenging waters for the sake of their children, but her efforts were met with increasing aggression and intimidation from James. The toxic environment created by James's behavior had a profound impact on Amanda's son and daughter. They witnessed their parents' struggles, and the emotional turmoil began to affect their well-being. This constant tension and fear became unbearable for Amanda and her children, and she realized that something had to change. After careful consideration, Amanda made the difficult decision to end her marriage with James. She knew that staying in the relationship was no longer a viable option, not only for herself, but also for the well-being of her children. The decision to leave was not easy, but Amanda was convinced it was the best choice for her and her children. When Amanda informed James of her decision, he was devastated. He did not want to lose her. However, Amanda's decision was final, and she was determined to create a safe and nurturing environment for her son and daughter. James moved out of the home he and Amanda once shared on South Bellagio Drive, but he visited the home often. There were times when James was over at the house that he and Amanda engaged in relations, but Amanda alleged that she only did so to comply with James to keep him from getting upset and hurting her. Amanda started dating a man, Lamar Doberly, but kept it a secret from James. Despite their separation, James's jealous tendencies did not subside. While Amanda was away one weekend, James decided to act upon his jealousy. He broke into Amanda's home and carried out a disturbing act of violence. James gathered all of Amanda's clothing and burned them in the backyard. After that incident, Amanda officially filed for divorce and sought an injunction from the court. This injunction included a provision that stated James needed to stay away from her home. In her injunction, Amanda explicitly stated that if James found out she had a boyfriend, he would kill her. She knew first the lengths James would go in order to control her, and she had seen firsthand the consequences of his jealous rages. Feeling threatened by Amanda's independence, James took drastic measures to spy on her. James sought the help of his neighbors living on South Bellagio Drive. He asked them to keep an eye on Amanda's activities and inform him if they noticed any suspicious activity, particularly men around her house. In August 2015, Mike Dickens, one of James's neighbors, sent him a text message containing a screenshot of a shirtless man mowing Amanda's lawn. This text sent James into a furious rage. He immediately confronted Amanda, demanding to know the identity of the man in the photograph. Amanda assured James that the man was merely someone she had hired to cut the grass. However, James was not convinced and continued to harass Amanda through text messages. James turned to Mike Dickens, who had provided him the initial image, for support. In his message to Mike, James referred to Amanda as an evil person, a cheater, and the worst person on the planet. He expressed his anger, stating she will pay for her perceived infidelity. On August 27th at 4:41 a.m., James drove to Amanda's house on South Bellagio Drive. Amanda, however, was not home. Frustrated by her absence, James decided to enter her house. Once inside, he embarked on a destructive rampage, breaking every television and destroying the furniture and walls. As James made his way through Amanda's bedroom, he stumbled upon a collection of men's clothing and adult toys. These items did not belong to him, and he immediately became enraged. In a fit of anger, he began incessantly calling Amanda, informing her about the intimate items he had discovered inside her bedroom. At 8:34 a.m., James left a voicemail on Amanda's phone, calling her disgusting. His message was filled with anger and accusations, further escalating the situation. Just half an hour after leaving the voicemail, James arrived at St. Johns County Courthouse for an appearance on the injunction violation that Amanda filed against him for an earlier incident. During the court hearing for the injunction violation, James pleaded no contest to violating the terms of their protective order. Unaware of the mess James had just made at Amanda's house, the judge took into consideration James's lack of criminal history and decided to impose an alternate sentence rather than send him to jail. The judge ordered James to attend anger management classes and placed him on 1-year unsupervised probation. James, dressed in his work clothes, appeared to accept this decision and leave the courthouse. However, his plans took a turn for the worse. Before leaving the courthouse, James called Amanda and left another voice message. This time, he pleaded with her to listen to him and call him back. James referred to Amanda as baby and expressed his desire for reconciliation. Amanda finally answered the phone, and they engaged in a 14-minute conversation. The exact content of this conversation remains unknown, but it significantly impacted James's actions. Instead of heading to work as planned, James changed his actions. He headed to a gas station. There, he filled up his tank and purchased several cans of beer. At approximately 10:11 a.m., James started his journey towards South Bellagio Drive, where Amanda lived, armed with 2 loaded handguns. Amanda returned home to a devastating scene. James had not only damaged her home, but also caused her immense emotional distress. Alarmed and upset, Amanda sought solace in the arms of her boyfriend, Lamar, and was joined by 2 friends, Lindy Robbins and Rachel Hendricks. Visibly shaken and in tears, Amanda reached out to the sheriff's department and requested assistance. However, after careful consideration, she decided against pressing charges against James. Amanda wanted to avoid seeing James go to jail and be separated from their children. Since Amanda denied the officers' help, they left Amanda's home. Unbeknownst to Amanda, James had already made his way to the vicinity of her home. He parked his vehicle outside the residence and stealthily approached the front door. Amanda, Lamar, Lindy, and Rachel were gathered in the living room kitchen area. Without hesitation, James opened fire on the house, screaming, "Where is he?" Recognizing the danger, Lamar reacted quickly and escaped. Security camera footage from the South Bellagio Drive residence captured Lamar's desperate dash to a nearby house. In the chaos that ensued, Amanda, Lindy, and Rachel found themselves caught in the crosshairs of James's rage. Bullets pierced through the walls, sending shockwaves of fear through the room. As the smoke cleared, the sound of silence engulfed the home. The 3 women sought refuge in Amanda's bedroom and hid inside the master bathroom suite. While hiding, Amanda courageously decided to call 911. However, things took a deadly turn when James could be heard outside the bathroom door, demanding Amanda open it. Amanda desperately pleaded for James to stop, knowing he was looking for her boyfriend, Lamar. She knew that revealing Lamar's location could put him in grave danger. Unfortunately, the situation escalated further, and the 911 dispatcher heard a barrage of gunshots and screaming. The dispatcher's worst nightmare was quickly realized as Amanda's cries for help abruptly ended. James had violently entered the bathroom and opened fire on Amanda, killing her. After shooting Amanda, James turned his attention to the closet where Lindy and Rachel were hiding. Lindy was also on the phone with 911 and kneeling in the back of the closet. Rachel, standing in the corner, prepared herself for the worst. James shot the closet door down. In a moment of pure instinct, Rachel took advantage of the situation and snuck behind the door as James walked in. Her heart pounding, Rachel heard Lindy cry out in horror, "Oh my God," as James raised his firearm and pointed it directly at her head. In an instant, James pulled the trigger, and Lindy's life came to an end. Rachel ran out of Amanda's home and sought refuge at a neighbor's house. There, she hid in a closet and called 911, expressing her fear that James would eventually find her. Officers arrived at the scene and swiftly launched an investigation, trying to piece together the sequence of events that led to Amanda's death. However, their search proved challenging, as James had already fled the scene. Hours after committing the heinous crime, James reached out to his father, confessing that he could not handle the situation any longer. He revealed that Amanda had been relentlessly trying to put him in jail, leaving him no choice but to take drastic measures. James expressed remorse and claimed he tried his best to resolve the situation peacefully. James drove to his sister's house, where he picked up some of his belongings before leaving and heading north. The hunt for James only lasted for a single day before he was apprehended in Virginia. His arrest came as a result of a call from a woman who reported a suspicious car with Florida tags driving aggressively and attempting to run her off the road. Traveling with 3 small children, this woman was terrified for her safety. In response, an officer made a traffic stop, and James was arrested. He was found to be intoxicated, but did not resist. At the police station in Virginia, James was taken into an interrogation room where Samantha English, a detective from Florida, was there to question him about Amanda and Lindy's murders. Despite driving 10 hours to interview James, Detective Samantha English's efforts proved futile after he insisted on seeking an attorney. Because the nature of Amanda and Lindy's death was so horrifying, the prosecution considered seeking the death penalty against James Colley. To secure a conviction and the death penalty, the prosecution had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that James had committed premeditated murder and that he had several opportunities to change his mind. Premeditation refers to the perpetrator's intent to kill before carrying out the act. In this case, the prosecution had to demonstrate that James had planned to kill Amanda and Lindy prior to the murder. The prosecutor had to present evidence showcasing that James had formulated a plan to kill Amanda and Lindy, that he had intentionally carried out the killings, and that he had knowingly disregarded any opportunities to change his mind. They needed to gather sufficient evidence and build a strong case against James to ensure justice was served for the 2 victims. James, who was being held at the Duffield Regional Jail awaiting trial for the murder of Amanda, maintained contact with his family throughout his incarceration. These phone calls were recorded, providing detectives with valuable insights into his mindset. Through these recordings, the true nature of James's cold-hearted nature was exposed. In various phone calls, James expressed his intention to keep his son and daughter away from Amanda's family. James made it evident that he aimed to assert control over his children's lives. Moreover, the recordings revealed James's confidence in securing a manslaughter conviction. He spoke about the possibility of being released from prison in less than 20 years, even though he was facing charges for murder. An inmate at the Duffield Regional Jail came forward to speak to the prosecution. The inmate, Andrew Cherry, claimed that he had conversations with James in which James expressed that Amanda and Lindy had gotten what they deserved when he shot them. According to Andrew, James had no shortage of mean and spiteful things to say about his dead wife. James blamed Amanda for the failure of their marriage and expressed satisfaction in ending her life. The inmate's testimony provided the prosecution with a crucial insight into the motive behind James's actions. It suggested that the motive for murder was not merely an act of violence, but a deep-rooted desire for revenge. James had harbored resentment towards Amanda and sought to punish her for perceived wrongs. During the summer of 2018, James Colley found himself on trial. James made a shocking admission to the court on the first day of the trial. He informed the judge that he understood the strategy devised by the defense was to save his life. However, he also stated that by accepting this defense, he would be admitting to discharging a firearm that resulted in the deaths of 2 people. James's defense team presented their case to the jury during their opening arguments. They emphasized that this case was not about assigning blame, but rather about understanding the why and the how behind the tragic events. The defense argued that a man like James, who professed to love his family above all else, could not have done this. According to the defense, James was under the influence of Ambien at the time of the shooting and urged the jury to consider this mitigating factor. According to James's defense attorneys, this incident was not a case of first-degree murder. The attorneys argued that there was an element of diminished responsibility due to James's state of intoxication. They maintained that James was not in his right mind at the time of the shooting and lost control of his actions. Rachel Hendricks, who had witnessed James's rampage firsthand, was the first to testify. She recounted the horrifying events that unfolded on the evening of the murder. Lamar Doberly, Amanda's boyfriend, was the second witness to testify. He said he became convinced that James was targeting him, prompting him to run from Amanda's house as soon as he heard gunshots. During Lamar's cross-examination, the defense attorney sought to cast doubt on his testimony. The attorney asked if Lamar was aware that James and Amanda had been engaging in a secret relationship. Lamar denied having any knowledge of this. However, the defense's questioning took a controversial turn when the attorney mentioned Amanda's adult toys. The prosecution was outraged, feeling that the defense was attempting to tarnish Amanda's reputation and paint her as promiscuous. The public sentiment mirrored the prosecution's view, as people took to social media and attacked the defense attorney for victim-blaming Amanda. In a later interview, the defense attorney claimed that his intention was not to victim-shame Amanda, but to save his client's life. He argued that exploring all aspects of the case, including the intimate details of Amanda's life, was necessary to understand the situation comprehensively. However, the public remained divided, questioning the defense attorney's tactics and motives. After the prosecution presented their case in court, it was time for the defense to present their side of the story. One key decision for the defense team was whether James would testify in his defense. The defense had to consider the potential risks and benefits of James taking the witness stand. On one hand, the defense believed James could gain jury sympathies by expressing his side of the story. James could humanize himself and appeal to the jury's emotions by explaining his actions and emotions. However, on the other hand, the defense knew that James would face a grueling cross-examination by the prosecution. This cross-examination would expose any inconsistencies in his testimony and could raise further questions about his guilt. Ultimately, the defense decided not to put James on the witness stand. This decision was not made lightly, as the defense knew that it would deprive the defense of the opportunity to present their case firsthand. However, the defense believed that the risks of James testifying outweighed the potential rewards. Instead of calling James a witness, the defense decided to call Rhonda, James's sister. Rhonda's testimony played a significant role in the defense's strategy. The defense aimed to show that while James was trying to salvage his marriage, Amanda was already seeking a divorce. During her testimony, Rhonda became emotional as she spoke about her role in her brother's divorce. She acknowledged acting as a go-between for James and Amanda, attempting to mediate and find a resolution to their marital problems. During the defense's closing arguments, they argued that an emotional roller coaster led to the deaths of Amanda Colley and Linda Dobbins. They contended that it was not a premeditated crime and urged the jury to find James Colley guilty of second-degree murder. The defense alleged that James snapped and committed the murders in a state of temporary insanity. However, the prosecution presented a different theory during their closing arguments. They argued that James committed the murders due to a deep-seated resentment and anger that built up over time. According to the prosecution, James killed Amanda and Linda because Amanda rejected him and his inability to accept no for an answer. Amanda and Linda's loved ones attended every day of James's trial, wearing purple, the color for domestic violence victims and survivors. After the jury deliberated, they returned with a guilty verdict on every count. Tammy Malone, Amanda's sister, spoke during the trial's penalty phase, sharing her heartfelt memories of her dear sister. Tammy described Amanda as smart, funny, kind, and compassionate. She let the court know that Amanda's life mattered to many people in many different ways. Linda's husband, Chris Dobbins, also testified during the sentencing hearing. He spoke about how he left an empty blue chair for Linda at his son's sports games. The blue chair symbolized the void left in their family's life. The courtroom was somber as Chris recounted his memories of his wife. His voice filled with pain and grief, he described the impact Linda had on their family. It was obvious that the loss of these two women had left an unforgettable mark on the lives of their families and friends. During the penalty phase, James's defense attorney attempted to argue that James was under the influence of Ambien at the time of the killings. The defense argued that this impairment prevented him from effectively dealing with the situation. To support this claim, the defense presented evidence suggesting that when James arrived at the court for his injunction violation hearing, he was already impaired. They argued that his confused behavior and mannerisms were indicative of his drug-induced state. However, in rebuttal, the prosecution played CCTV footage from that morning, which depicted James's behavior during his court appearance. The video showed James acting perfectly normal, without any signs of intoxication or impairment. Furthermore, the judge who had spoken directly to James that morning also took the stand during the sentencing hearing. The judge stated that during their interaction, he did not notice any signs of intoxication. Rather, James appeared lucid and composed. This testimony further undermined the defense's argument that James was impaired at the time of the killings. James's sister, Crystal, took the stand to testify on his behalf. Crystal painted a different picture of her brother, depicting him as a loving and caring father. She presented pictures of James spending time with his children during happier times, emphasizing the joy and warmth they experienced together. The defense's strategy was clear: to humanize James and remind the jury of the importance of family. By emphasizing his role as a loving father, they hoped to create a softer image and reduce the severity of his crimes. During the defense's closing arguments, the attorneys argued that if jurors were to sentence James to life without parole, he would still face the same fate as the death penalty, as life in prison would mean he would never be released. Florida law requires that 12 jurors unanimously agree on the death penalty in order for it to be applied. Even if one juror holds out, the sentence cannot be imposed. However, based on the information uncovered during the trial, the jurors determined that James deserved the ultimate punishment. They suggested that he should be sentenced to death for his heinous crimes. The judge ultimately agreed with the jury. Amanda's family and Linda's loved ones cried with relief and sadness. While justice had been served, there was still a profound sense of loss. On one side of the courtroom, James's supporters sat stunned. As the bailiffs led James away, he smiled and winked at his supporters. The story of Amanda and Lindy's murder serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of domestic violence. Amanda's loved ones hope her story serves as a cautionary tale, inspiring others in similar situations to protect themselves. Despite Amanda's efforts to seek justice through the courts, James still managed to reach her. Amanda's family and friends hope that her story serves as a stark reminder of the severity of domestic violence, urging people to take the issue seriously and not dismiss it as mere arguments or misunderstandings. Any act of aggression within a relationship, regardless of how long a couple has been together, is deserving of attention and intervention. The violence can escalate rapidly, leaving good people like Amanda and Lindy dead. Domestic violence does not discriminate, affecting individuals from all walks of life. It does not solely manifest in young couples or those experiencing rocky relationships. Even couples who have been together for decades are not immune to the destructive power of abuse. Through Amanda's story, we are encouraged to break the silence surrounding domestic violence and seek help when needed. By raising awareness and advocating for change, we can prevent future tragedies and ensure that no person has to experience the pain and loss of losing a loved one to domestic violence.